Hands-on with Apple's new iPad Pro, MacBook Air and Mac Mini. Live from the Twitch studios in Petaluma, California, it's the new Screensavers.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
The new Screensavers is brought to you by WordPress. Reach more customers when you build your business website at WordPress.com. Plans start at just $4 a month, and you'll get 15% off any new plan purchase at WordPress.com/NSS. And by Rocket Mortgage from Quicken Loans, introducing Rate Shield Approval. If you're in the market to buy a home, Rate Shield Approval locks up your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. It's a real game changer. Learn more and get started at rocketmortgage.com/NSS. Nice job. Really
classing up the joint this time. Yeah.
It's great to see you. Welcome back. You were at the National Epilepsy Awareness Day at Disneyland, right?
I was indeed.
Was it fun?
It was fun.
Yeah? How many people?
Over 4,000 came to it.
Purple everywhere.
Epilepsy Awareness Month in the USA.
And the website is epilepsyawareness.day.org. Yeah. Thank you. Good job.
Thanks, Leo.
Nice to see you. Hey, once again, nice to see you. Jason Snell is in studio. Episode 182, recorded Saturday, November 10th, 2018. It is Singles Day today. Well, tomorrow. But it's already tomorrow today.
Interesting.
In China.
Okay.
Alibaba.
This is new. I haven't heard of this.
No, I'm throwing this in.
Singles Day.
At 11/11.
Like singles, like people who are alone.
Singletons, sad, lonely people
All
like
right.
you and me. 11111. No, we're both married. We're not single.
Yes, not.
Yeah.
That's
we just
right.
dream
You
of
missed
being
it.
single.
You're so very close. You just missed it.
111 is Singles Day. It's Alibaba started this about 20 years ago. This is the biggest. Forget Black Friday. This is the biggest selling day of the year right now. It's going on in China. In the first 85 seconds of Singles Day, Alibaba alone sold $1 billion worth of merchandise. By now, it'll be a lot more. Just throwing that in. Just telling you.
And are they only bought by singles or for singles?
I don't really understand what the singles part has to do with it.
And it's because it's 11/11.
Yeah. Let's go to Alibaba.com and check in. They have like shows. They have all sorts of stuff going on. Save big, big, big. It's Super Week.
Super Week.
Super Week. I'm not going to allow Alibaba to send me notifications though, because I'll be hearing about vape pen accessories all day. I don't want to get that. Look at that. This is apparently a good place to go to buy an electric bike, though.
Oh yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah, I have a friend who's deep into the Alibaba shopping, and he gets all sorts of products way before they're legal in the rest of the world.
Yeah, exactly. $320 for this Harley electric scooter, not actually made by Harley.
No. It's just its name. It's just Harley.
Just
short
Harley style.
For Harlequin, probably. Something like
Coming
that.
up on today's show, hope you like Apple.
Yeah, if you don't, I got bad news for you. I'm here. And Apple released a bunch of new products this week. It's the week. We can talk about it this week.
We have it all, too.
Give me this, Leo. Give me this.
No, I'm excited. I got it all. Purchased with my own money an iPad Pro, three of them. One for me, one for Megan, one for my wife, Lisa.
Ooh, look at all that Apple gear that's on that table.
I bought two MacBook Airs, one for me, one for Lisa, both gold, because we're classy that way.
Sure, yeah.
I bought.
It's the new gold. It's a new classier shade of gold.
Only one Mac Mini for John, for Jammer B. He wants more Mac Minis, but I only bought one. We're going to do an unboxing. You brought yours.
I bought a dongle. I bought a headphone dongle.
And he didn't even buy that. That came with your Pixel phone.
I bought that.
Oh, all right.
That's an Apple exclusive original USB-C to headphone adapter, the likes of which we've never seen before.
Apple sells those?
Yeah, oh yeah. It's
How
the cheapest
much?
thing you get in the Apple Store. It's like $8 or something.
All
Yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah. I had mine delivered to me, so it came in a cardboard box with this little dongle.
Everything.
It's like, yeah, that's it.
Including the dongle.
You want to add a podcast on the iPad Pro? Here's your dongle.
You know what I do? I got my headphones right here. Of course, they don't work with anything anymore. So
I keep my dongles in my headphone
I keep my dongles. I got them all.
Where else are you going to put them?
What else are you going to do? You got dongles.
That's why we are residents of Dongle Town.
Yeah, dongle. Won't you take me to
Dongle Town?
Okay, that's enough singing.
Yeah. For now.
Who would have thought these headphones would be obsolete thanks to Apple's courage? Who would have thought that?
It takes that kind of courage.
What am I going to stick that into? Well, actually, my MacBook Air still.
MacBook Air and the Mac Mini.
And the Mini. I could stick it in my Mini.
Yeah, Macs still have headphone jacks for now.
Why does the Mac Mini have a headphone jack? Who's using a Mac Mini?
You're plugging it into speakers or something like that.
Oh, all right.
There's reasons.
Okay, so we're going to talk about all that. Plus, we're going to throw in a ringer.
Yes.
Because a lot of people, when they were thinking about what the MacBook Air might be, said, you know, what it really should be is a lot like this Huawei MateBook 10 Pro. X.
The 10 like X?
X Pro. God dang it. The MateBook.
Apple's ruined you.
Just edit that part out. The MateBook X Pro. This could have been. What could have been. It's actually pretty nice. But there's only one thing wrong with it. It's running Windows.
Yeah.
But very nice. We'll talk about that in a second, too. Also, it has a unique camera configuration. Where do you see that? The nostril cam. The nostril cam. And what'd you bring?
Oh, everything. iPad Pro 11 and 12.9. I brought my Mac Mini up. I brought the MacBook Air
what
in
you
Space
bought was
Gray.
a Mac Mini.
I bought a Mac Mini.
Of all the things you could have bought, you bought the Mac Mini.
And I bought one of the iPad Pros, yeah.
Okay.
And the rest, and I'll probably buy the rest once I return. I've got Apple review units, but then they take those back, and then I have to go buy them.
Well, you're lucky because you can try it all.
It's true. No, that is the biggest thing, is that I get to try out that MacBook Air and know exactly how I feel before I buy it.
I don't. I just buy it.
You just buy it.
But, you know, Alex Lindsay used to have a deal with Travis down at the Apple Store in San Francisco. I don't know what Steve's going to announce today.
Give me the first one off the truck. Yeah.
One of each.
We used to do that at Macworld when we were testing products, and Apple would get us a review unit eventually.
Yeah.
And we had a guy at the Apple Store in San Francisco who was like, just take one of each off the top of the pile. And
yeah. I kind of like that.
We bought them,
you're getting the real experience of a real user shelling out real money for those real products, and it was a lot. Red, Red.
Speaking of shelling out money.
Speaking of shelling out money. Red make those great cameras,
absolutely,
and everybody covets the Red 4K, 5K cameras, but
8K now I think
8K, but now and we could use Red, but we don't want to waste your bits, so we don't. But we do have the new Red phone, the Hydrogen One, with its holographic
display.
Jason Howell, we made him review it. You know what I like about it? It has a gun grip. See that?
Yeah.
You know why? Because it weighs 23 pounds. So otherwise, it would just slide right out of your hand. Jason Howell will have his review. We also do the mailbag.
Yeah, the mailbag. I love the mailbag. It's not a bag, by the way. It's still not a bag.
Still not a bag. The mailbox.
It's a mailbox.
Why don't we just say, let's do our mailbox?
Let's open the mailbox.
Why don't we say that? Let's start saying that from now on. Oh, that's why. We've got graphics.
All right, fair. That's fair. You got me.
Before there was a box, there was a bag, and we don't want to redo the graphics.
Okay.
Or something.
It happens.
Hot news. I already mentioned the big story about Singles Day.
Yes. Yes, you did. Yeah.
Run out.
We covered that one.
Covered it thoroughly. What else is in the news? Samsung. Did you see the Samsung event?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So they did a lot of talking about Bixby for some reason and developing for Bixby.
Well, it's a developer conference, right? So they're trying to get people excited about Bixby.
Yikes.
Which nobody is excited about.
No. I mean, if you're a developer and you want to develop for a voice assistant, which you probably are interested in, Echo first.
Yes.
Maybe Google Home, maybe.
Yeah.
And then maybe Siri.
Yeah.
Maybe then Cortana.
Yeah.
And then Bixby? I don't even know if Bixby's on that list.
Yeah, just what my phone needs is 2 voice assistants.
Yeah. Well, hey, but Bixby has
Fight
its
it
own
out.
button.
Oh yeah, Bixby does have its own button. But I get that. But really what everybody's talking about is that moment of legerdemain, of sleight of hand, where they came on to the stage and said, I have a prototype here.
Right here.
And they dimmed the lights so you couldn't see it.
Is it pitch
Start
black?
the smoke machine, fire lasers into the eyes of the crowd so they're like, oh, what is it? Oh,
What
no,
is
what's
it?
there?
What is it?
And for a moment you can glance.
Look at this. They're going to turn out the lights.
There goes
Wait a
the
minute.
lights.
What do you turn out the lights for?
But look, it's a very thick
There's a phone.
phone with a small screen.
Yeah, tiny screen on the
And
front.
then you open it. What?
And it's got another screen inside. Now how much would you
And
pay?
and then boop, gone.
That's it.
Yep.
That's it. Next year, they said this is not going to look like this.
Right.
Because it's in a special case to hide all the features.
Right.
Which really aren't any features because we don't know what the hell it's
No.
going to look like yet.
But it's a foldable display. I mean, they've been talking about one day there would be foldable displays for so long, and it looks at least like they do exist now. When they are in a viable product remains to be seen, right? But I mean, the idea that this phone that keeps getting bigger and bigger in our pockets because we want a bigger screen, the idea that eventually that our pockets, we're going to need new pockets, right? We're going to need a bigger pocket.
We're going to need a bigger pocket.
So instead, what if we can have like a smaller phone, and when we need it, we take it out and we go pop, and it becomes like a little tablet. That's the promise here.
So what do you think?
I like the idea. I mean, I don't like the idea that it's going to be like an inch thick.
I don't know if it'll be that thick. That they kind of said this isn't. It's thicker because it's in a case.
Sure, and they're trying to hide the industrial design or something like that. That may be. But I do think, a lot of people don't like the size of the phone because they want to use it one-handed and they want to fit it in their pocket.
So this way you got
if you
two
could convert
screens.
it into almost like a tablet when it's out of your pocket, I think it's interesting.
Google at the same exact time as Samsung announced this on their Android blog said, yeah, we're going to support foldables because we want them all to operate roughly the same. Of course, Samsung's busy saying we've got the new One UI everywhere. It's going to be our thing, not the Google thing that they're talking about.
And they got the multitasking where they're going to have 3 different apps running at once and the wide folded out display, which is fine.
Get an iPad.
Yeah, well, that's
honestly.
Yeah.
I
think though, in a world where you could have your phone in your pocket and make it an iPad when you want, that's kind of cool. But what do you give up? Because in the short term, what's going to happen is we all are like starry-eyed now and like, ooh, foldable display. But it's going to come out and it's going to be too heavy. It's going to be too thick.
Yeah.
It's going to be compromised in a whole bunch of ways that it won't be eventually, but it will be for the first few years it's out.
Well, we'll find out, I guess, next year with the S10 maybe. Or
I
the
love
Note 10.
these it's about to be next year moments. When we get late in the year and everybody's like, it's coming next year. And it's like, that is like a 15-month range.
Next year is
it's a long
could
time.
be 2 months from now.
2019.
Could be CES, but no.
But it could
definitely
also be
not.
Christmas.
Could be CES 2020.
Yeah.
Which is almost next year.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Wouldn't be the first product to fly through 2 CESs before it appears.
Now, we're going to show you a Huawei laptop. I met Huawei. We're at the Christmas PepCom event in San Francisco a couple of weeks ago, and I talked to them. I saw that they have a beautiful new phone, the P20 Pro or something like that. They have this laptop which came out earlier this year. And I asked the woman who is based in Chicago, or Seattle, she's local, U.S. I said, what? You understand that people are nervous about Huawei because it's owned by the Chinese, partly at least owned by the Chinese government. And she said, yeah, you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about that because everything goes through Germany. That was their answer.
Okay.
Everything goes through Germany. Now, the Australians may feel a little bit different. Australian intelligence says Huawei was used in espionage in Australia. But everything goes through Germany. The Huawei was furious. You may remember Huawei announced the P20 phone, which is a very nice phone, and they thought they had AT&T and Verizon that were going to carry it. And then at the behest of the U.S. government last year, or actually earlier this year, both AT&T and Verizon pulled out. And Huawei was pissed. This was at CES, I think. Huawei came on stage. The guy from Huawei was yelling practically. He was so upset. And they said, we're not going to sell it in the U.S. because if you don't have carrier support in the U.S., there's no point in pushing the market. So they still sell their laptops and stuff. I don't know how I feel. I think if they were sending stuff back to China, we'd know. And what are they going to do with my stuff? Now, if you were a Chinese dissident, I would probably, I don't know what I would do.
Or if you're anybody
Use a purism.
who is concerned about the possibility of that, if you're an American dissident or Russian dissident or
Yeah, but
something
what are
like
they
that.
going to do? They're going to tell maybe they tell the American government,
I don't know.
the Russian government?
I feel like the biggest part of this story is that there's this general discomfort in this era of like trade wars and lots of saber rattling between the U.S. and China. This becomes part of that conversation, which is how can we trust your hardware?
Right.
But they also could call the supply chain. And there was that Bloomberg story that has famously been denied by everybody, saying that there were insertions.
But not disproven.
Yeah. Nor has Bloomberg really shown, other than saying that people said this. Yeah. But the idea there is that scary Chinese supply chain is inserting chips in devices as they're being built.
Every single Apple product we're going to show is built in Shenzhen, China.
Assembled in China. Yeah, absolutely.
And many of the parts that go into it, going down the line, are made by Chinese and other companies,
yes,
right?
many. They're from all over the world, but yes, absolutely. And of course, the assembly plants there are not Apple plants anyway. It's a Chinese company that owns them. It's Foxconn, exactly. Yeah. So it's just a matter of details, but it does feel like this is more about the fear than anything else. Then again, then you get a report from Australia that says they think that they're actually being used in this way.
I just don't know what to think.
It's very difficult because we have the whole global technology supply chain is based on the idea of international manufacture. And it all falls apart if suddenly you can't trust parts from other countries.
This is my favorite Windows laptop, is a Lenovo.
Right.
It's made in China. It's a Chinese company.
Absolutely.
I just don't know what to think. Well, we give you the news. We don't know what to think.
That's right.
That's our job. We just tell you what happened.
We read things.
You decide.
You think.
You think for us. Coming up, we're going to sit down and go through all of the Apple stuff. Again, if you don't like Apple, stay tuned.
Run away.
Because we're going to talk about this fabulous phone.
Yes, and the MateBook 10 or X or
we're just
whatever
throwing
it
that
is.
in. Otherwise, it'd be like apple pie with no pie.
Yeah. You have a show. It would just be Mac Break Weekly, literally.
It would be literally Mac Break Weekly. Our show today brought to you by WordPress. I've been using WordPress. I just got my badge on the WordPress app, which I love, for 12 years since I created my WordPress.com account. And I actually had a WordPress blog for years before that. I was a fan of Matt Mullenweg's when he first put out WordPress. Look, I'm not alone. 32% of all the websites in the world run on WordPress. WordPress.com/NSS. WordPress is... I'll tell you why I like WordPress. First of all, because it's so dominant, there's a lot of support for it. Our friend Daniel Jalcut has some great, Mars edit. But I use the WordPress app, which is, by the way, fantastic.
My entire membership system for 6 Colors and The Incomparable is based on WordPress because
it's the platform.
Memberful, the platform we use, only makes a WordPress plugin.
I love the WordPress.com anti-spam engine at Kismet. Keeps all the comment spam gone. And I can, by the way, I can approve comments on the WordPress app. I can see my analytics. And of course, I can post. I did on our trip. It was so easy. WordPress.com lets you choose from hundreds of designs to match your vision, match your brand. Frankly, if you don't have a website, you don't exist on the internet. You're letting somebody else determine who you are on the internet. I tell teenagers this. Don't let somebody else's pictures of you at a party be the one thing people find when they Google you. Get a website, make it WordPress.com, make it look like you want it to look, put your best stuff up there. WordPress is the place. Very affordable. Plans start at just $4 a month. If you ever have any questions, it's easy, 24/7 support right there when you need it. Of course, great marketing tools, too. Built-in search engine optimization, social media linking, so your visitors can share your site with their Facebook and their Twitter. WordPress takes care of the hosting, the security, the software updates. You do one thing. You focus on your content. Let WordPress handle the rest. This is why 32% of the world's websites, not just blogs, but websites, run on WordPress. Quartz runs on WordPress. LeoLaporte.com happens to run on WordPress. Right now, get 15% off any new plan purchase when you go to WordPress.com/NSS. WordPress.com/NSS. Create your new website. 15% off WordPress.com/NSS. So we got a few iPads here. I notice all 3 of these come with or are equipped with the new Folio keyboard case.
There is also a
smart
Folio that just has, or a Folio case.
Yeah.
Still front and back because all the magnets, there's like 102 magnets in the iPad Pro, and a lot of them are right on the back. So this gets held in place on the back.
And I noticed this has 3 pogo pins on this one.
Yeah, that's the smart
keyboard
connector, and that it gives power to the keyboard and sends the keyboard data back.
So unlike the old iPad with the pogo pins on the bottom, these are on the side.
Those are on the back, and what they want. And I imagine that if there are other accessories for the iPad Pro to come out, they will all probably do the same thing, which is mount on the back using magnets.
So
There's
yeah,
a whole array
Logitech
of
says they're
magnets there.
doing a keyboard case. I know there's quite a few. Bridge is going to do
Bridge
one.
is going to do one.
Yeah. So we'll see keyboard cases for the iPad Pro. Although I have to say, I like the Apple one. The only negative is it's $200.
Yeah, it's 200 for the 12.9. It's I think 180 for the 11-inch, but
That's a good point.
it's very expensive. The Bridge keyboard, which is my favorite for the old model, was 150.
Yeah.
So, and that's got physical keys.
Right.
Although
are
this
chiclets.
yeah, it's
Not
really
bad
they're
for
really
chiclets.
good. I mean, for a
Yeah.
fabric keyboard, it's quite good. And this
Two
is
angles.
this is much better than the old one because it's got the 2 viewing angles,
Yeah.
and because all the force is being put. It's not a kickstand case. All the
Yes.
force is being put on this single rigid
table.
surface, so
Yeah.
you can use it in your lap.
I like that. And I have to say, let me just close this. This is a fairly elegant way to carry it around. Of course, this is the new pencil. We're doing the accessories first because we're going to get to the iPad.
Sure.
This is the new pencil, which magnetically adheres to the top. And when it's doing that, it's charging, which is great.
Yeah, because it's not only a magnet attachment, it's an inductive charger, and it will pair automatically.
It's not perfect. It's
not
you saw I
perfect.
was able to shake it off.
If you get it mounted right, it's harder to shake it off, but it's still very easy to just kind of brush it off.
That's
like
the real
that.
problem. You put it in your briefcase, it's going to brush
It'll
off.
pop off. But
Yeah.
in sort of just general use around the house, it's more likely that you're going to keep it with you than the old one. Big thing, you mentioned it. The old keyboard case had like a ledge because it had multiple things that folded, and this one's really much nicer because it's just the 2 planes. So when you close it up, it's flat.
Yes.
The old one, it wasn't flat. It was like
Right.
there was a low part and then a high part.
Right.
And this is so they really they improved both of these accessories. The pencil, it solves every problem with the pencil. It had the little weird wiggly tip, and you had to like stick it in the lightning port to charge it. Now it charges inductively. It's got a magnet, so you can clip it to it. There was no management of the pencil before.
And now you can tap it.
It now has gesture support. It's a double tap to switch to a different.
Now, you tell
command.
me something very interesting. I just assumed, as I'm sure everybody did, that the double tap is sensing the jiggle
Right.
with an accelerometer. That's not the case.
No, according to Apple, that is a touch-sensitive surface right at the front of the pencil.
So gestures.
And some people have looked and suggested that there was gesture support in the OS in a beta at some point. So it's possible that they won't ever do anything with that, but it is possible that down the road they might open that up so that if you did a slide or something like that, you could do something different than the double tap. But for now, it's just a double tap, and there's a default set where there's a system setting, so you can say, I want to toggle between whatever tool I'm using in the eraser or whatever tool I'm using in the previous tool, or I can double tap to bring up a color picker, and that's the default. But if you're an app developer who wants to build your own response to that gesture, you can do that. So you can either use the default, or if your the Photoshop demo showed.
I love that. She was dragging when she tapped, switched back and forth between drawing and dragging.
Yeah, and you can bring up a menu or do whatever else you
Right.
want, but there are some behaviors that are built in by default.
All right,
so it's way better than it used
Let's
to be.
detach the accessories
All
and
right.
talk about the
Yes, sir.
device. This is different design than the old iPads. These are squared off.
Got the little guy here too.
Not the skinny thing. So let's actually show those two together. You have the 11-inch, and that's the.
That's the 12.9 and the 11. Yeah.
So what they did with the 10.5 is they basically expanded the screen to 11 on the same size device, roughly.
Yeah, they did a really smart thing, which is they think people really like this standard size, and so they just kept it the same and expanded the screen. So this is
There's very little bezel.
and it's a different aspect ratio as a result. It's not 4 by
is it?
3, it's a little bit wider. And that means that all apps have to be updated to support the new aspect ratio and all of
man.
that, otherwise they're letterboxed. But with the 12.9, they went the other way, which was to keep the screen the same size and shrink the device.
And actually, this to me is the sweet spot.
I
really like
I think
this.
you're right. I was tempted. The 12.9 has always been kind of big and kind of heavy, but you cut a bunch of size off of it, and that weight is. The weird thing about the 12.9 was always just the weight was distributed so widely that it was kind of ungainly, and it's a little more dense now, but it's smaller. And I think this is the sweet spot. This feels a little too small to me now.
No notch.
No
but,
notch.
We go almost all the way to the edges.
Right.
Enough. You
So-
still have to hold it.
So the true depth sensor is in there. That's the thing that's behind the notch in the iPhone 10.
It's here though this time.
But now these bezels are larger, but they're the same size all the way around.
Right.
No home button anymore, and the true depth camera, and it does Face ID all 4 orientations.
So when you first set it up, you have to do it in portrait mode to set it up, just like you would on a phone. But once you set it up, you can rotate it in any direction and it will recognize you.
Yeah.
This is something Apple said it couldn't do on the iPhone 10. They've obviously figured that out.
And they said the hardware is the same, but what they've done is they've had to retrain their machine learning to deal with the different angles. It's not just the orientations, but all the angles, because you can be kind of like out like this.
Diagonal.
Like if you're doing this, it's shooting from below and it's looking up your nose, and it needs to measure that nose
The
properly.
other thing it does, which I think is really nice, because you could very easily have your finger over the camera, it will, first of all, you don't know where the camera is. It's kind of invisible. It'll point to the camera and it'll say, it's blocked right now.
Yeah.
Move it over. Move it over.
Yeah, it actually draws a little arrow.
It's pretty cute.
And says you can't.
I don't even know if I'm upright or not. Oh, there we go. All right. So, okay, so camera, see, it says camera covered.
There
right?
it is.
Yeah, my camera's covered because I got my finger there. Oh, but it unlocked. I have to say, the A12X Bionic that's in here, the processor in here, which is even faster than on the iPhone XS, right?
Yes.
Is fast.
Yeah, it's an 8-core processor. There are 4 performance cores and 4 low-power cores, but they can use all 8 if it needs to power up.
7 GPU cores.
Yeah.
And a machine learning core.
And
Holy
what
cow.
is it? I think that's like 8 machine learning cores too. Yeah.
It's crazy. This thing is way overpowered because you're still running iOS.
Yeah, I mean there are. Photoshop's coming next year. There are other apps. I do podcast editing on it in Ferrite.
How is it doing that?
And it's great.
Does it feel faster?
And it's faster now. It is measurably faster now for some of those things like bouncing or encoding MP3s or things like that. But this is one of the challenges we were talking before the show. The knock on the iPad is not the hardware; it's the software. I keep saying
the hardware feels like
is
the
willing,
future.
but the software is weak.
It's weak. That's what Nilay Patel said as well. But this feels like the future of computing, in no doubt. I mean, this is super fast, super slick, but you're stuck with something basically feels to me like an operating system that's based on the iPhone.
Yeah, that's right. The original conception was the iPhone, and it's been adapted. And for years, up until about three years ago, Apple really didn't do anything in terms of investing in the iPad features. And they've turned the corner there, but still. Mark Gurman at Bloomberg had a report that there were a bunch of iPad features that were supposed to be in iOS 12 that got kicked out until iOS 13 next year. It's hard, when you think about how long it takes for Apple to design a piece of hardware, it is hard not to look at this and imagine that maybe it was built with more features in mind than the operating system has. And there's a whole list of things that, a new way, the app launcher feels old, the Files app won't access network shares or external devices that you plug in.
I could plug a hard drive. I mean, I love it that it has USB-C now.
Right? It's a real
But plug
connector.
a hard drive in and it'll think it's a camera.
Yeah, that's right. All it'll do is
However,
import pictures and videos.
You can do your Bob Ross, your best Bob Ross.
Is that a happy little tree?
That's a happy little tree.
Very nice.
I love it. It's actually a little easier on the happy little trees to do it with the finger.
Sure.
Yeah.
Finger painting is all. So, it may be that Apple's iOS strategy is just lagging a little bit behind the hardware here, but you're right. It is really frustrating to have something with this kind of power and not be able to take advantage of all that power.
Actually, I didn't.
You feeling good now?
Confess, Sean drew this, and I'm ruining Sean's painting.
There's undo.
Yeah. You know what's really weird? Every time I tap one of this is Procreate. Like I'm going to show this, see Rainbow Feather, I want to look at it, tap it, it erases it. What the hell happened there?
I don't know.
I can't see any of the demos anymore.
Why did you ruin it?
I ruined it. Ruined it. So that's probably because not all the apps are yet hip to be the new iPad.
Apps are
right?
still being updated to support the new screen size. There are safe areas at the top and the bottom because there's no home button now.
Yeah.
The aspect ratio on the 11-inch is completely different. So there's work to be done, and then there's a lot of work to be done on Apple's part. We talk about Photoshop coming out next year on the iPad, and that'll be great. But iOS needs to be better. There's no doubt. I'm not one of those people who says you can't do real work on the iPad. I don't travel with a laptop anymore. I only travel with an iPad. But you do run into a lot of barriers because iOS has not come along as fast as it should have on the iPad.
Even with it, I mean, the new gestures are great. They're the iPhone gestures you're probably familiar with. You can pull up the dock. You can, let's say I want to do some photos in my, I can either have it hovering like this, and I'll pick a picture. I think I have a picture of. Let's mail this to Jason. What do you say?
Yeah, great.
So, gonna make.
I can't wait to see that.
I like this too. I could swipe this out of the way, and
Yep.
it stays there. Going to create a new thing, and then swipe it back in, paste it.
And you got to touch and hold until it picks up.
Pick up. There we go. Whoa.
Oh, see? Oh, there you go.
There we go. Put it right in there, just like that. I think some of these things are really designed for productivity, but so sometimes I think, well, and I've read articles to the fact that, well, we're just old school. We expect computing to be a certain way. The kids are going to be very comfortable with this, but I feel like it's just a little too hard to edit text. It's just a little bit too hard to do some things.
Well, the truth,
Apple could make this better.
The truth is in the middle, right? The people who say you can't do work on an iPad are wrong. Because of course, I know lots of people who do work on the iPad every day.
Right.
Then again, the people who say, like Steven Sinofsky, who used to be at Microsoft, said, oh, well, opening files from a flash drive is old school, and the kids don't need to do that anymore. And I think, the problem is we don't always work in an environment with high-speed cloud storage available to us at all times.
Right.
Sometimes one of your coworkers who's using a PC still because the world hasn't changed yet hands you a thumb drive and says, here's my PowerPoint presentation. Open this on your iPad. And you can't do that right now. And that's just ridiculous. That should just be done. I know that, yes, in the future we won't have thumb drives and we'll have pervasive high-speed cloud storage everywhere, but this is reality. Sometimes I'm recording a podcast live somewhere and I end up with an audio file on an SD card and I literally cannot attach that. Even though there's an SD card reader, I can't see that file because iOS won't let me. And I have to have a whole weird, external Wi-Fi box to do it instead.
Right. I don't know. Who's going to use this? That's VGA, HDMI. Will this work with this?
Probably so. I have a USB-C to VGA
Type-C
adapter.
port? You've got video, you've got USB, not Thunderbolt, but you've got data.
Right, it's USB-C, so you can do data, you can do charging, you can do up to 5K video out, which is good if you're doing something like video editing, for example.
So you could run the Fuji 5K monitor on an HDMI cable.
If it's a USB-C monitor, not if it's a Thunderbolt monitor.
That's
it
really
won't work with Thunderbolt. So there are like 3 of them out there that are USB-C monitors at 5K. There aren't that many. But if you want to do mass storage, it will import your photos and your videos, but it will literally not show it to you, even though there's a file managing
I feel like
app.
that's not really the point of something like the iPad. It's really designed to be used by itself, kind of sui generis.
Well, if you're going to have a $1,000 and up productivity device, is it too much to ask to say I'd like to be able to look at my network share and pull a file off? It's got a file manager app. This is the funny thing. It's like back when it didn't have a file manager app, I could see the argument. But now that the Files app exists, the door is open. You should probably walk through it. Similarly, there's a text editing cursor, and you can move it around on your screen with 2 fingers. Okay, well, you've got a cursor now. So you can't say cursors are impossible on iOS. Maybe you should allow pointing devices too.
Yeah.
At some point, some of this stuff probably needs to walk in the door. But that said, I still use it when I travel, and it's great. I just wish that some aspects of it didn't force me to use really weird techniques to bypass the OS when it should just support it.
It's frustrating to me because you have such a amazing piece of hardware.
Apple said it is, if you survey the
faster than 92% of all
laptops sold in the last year, it's faster than 92% of them. Apple is killing it on the hardware. This is an amazing piece of hardware. That A12 processor is spectacularly powerful. And then you get to one of those situations where you try to import a file and you can't do it.
Yeah.
And it's
difficult.
Yes, there are workarounds, but it's like, I want this to be the answer. And that's what frustrates people. And I think that's why people lash out and they say you can't do real work with it, which is not quite right. It's different work, but there are still, that doesn't make it that Apple doesn't need to do a lot of work here. Apple's got a lot of work to do on iOS on the iPad.
It's a lot of money to pay for a Netflix device.
Well, you shouldn't, right? I mean, this is actually, unlike some of other product lines that we're going to talk about here, at least the iPad, there's a reasonably priced iPad available. The $350 iPad is a pretty good iPad.
And that would be great for watching Netflix.
And for watching Netflix, you should not buy this to watch Netflix.
Yeah. But what should you buy this for?
Well,
that's the question.
I use this, like I said, I use this as my pro travel device, and I put photos in it and run Siri shortcuts, and I write, and you can edit photos on it, and you can edit video. I edit podcasts on it. There are lots of things that it can do because it's so powerful.
Right.
I wish it could do more, right? It would speak to more people. More people would be prospective buyers for this if it was a more capable piece of software running on it.
iPad Pro 11 inches, $799 with a 64 gigs worth of storage. You can add cellular for another $150,
Yep.
I think. You can add more storage. The iPad Pro 12.9 inch starts at $1,000
Yep.
for 64 gigs of storage. The pencil's $129.
Keyboard's $200 for the one, and I think $180 for the other.
smaller
Yeah.
one. I have such mixed feelings about this. I'm in love with the hardware. I love it. It's incredible. And I want to do something with it, and I feel a little bit hobbled.
I think
by
that's the
Apple's
source.
choices.
A lot of the frustration with the iPad is coming from that place, which I think people miss sometimes, which is when somebody complains about the iPad not being suitable for work. Yeah, those words are frustrating, but the fact is it's coming from a place of enthusiasm from it as a gadget, right?
It's
It is an
amazing.
amazing piece of hardware.
Yeah.
It's also expensive, but if you can justify it, it doesn't matter. How do you justify it? You have to justify it with what you do with it.
Right.
And that if you hit the wall and are like, I don't know, I can't do my job on this, of course you'd be frustrated.
Right. Well, truthfully, I think if money is an issue, you shouldn't buy anything from Apple. To be honest, there's an Apple premium on all
Sure,
of this stuff.
absolutely.
And it's really designed for people who are willing to spend more for something that has a certain cachet to it.
I wouldn't say it's the cachet. I don't agree with that argument, but I do
It's
think
the power.
I think and it's nice. It's nicer. It's better.
Well, yes,
Like,
it's nicer. Yeah.
yeah, but it's not like I don't
nicer.
buy Apple gear because I want to be seen with an Apple logo.
Right.
I buy it because I don't want to use Windows.
Right.
That's a little bit different. But
I
yeah,
can understand
if you Apple has never been, what I always say is Apple's never been the low price leader. They're never going to be. It's not the game they're playing. And if that's what you want, you should get a Chromebook or you should get a cheap PC laptop or something like that.
It's great for music. In fact, as you rotate
It's got 4 speakers. Again, it's $1,000, but it's got 4 speakers, each of which have
subwoofer and tweeter.
yeah, a
built in.
high end and a low end. Yeah,
It sounds great. This is the new
and the Beatles sound better than ever.
This is the 2018 remix. You want to hear some out tracks? Sorry, you can't. I don't want to get
This is gonna take us
taken
off of
down by the
YouTube.
Beatles. After the show. Yeah. All right, there's the iPad. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the MacBook Air. This is another one that's a little bit of a challenge.
It is.
You know, our review coming up in just a little bit. I'm so glad you're here, Jason. And actually, we're going to compare the Air to what some people said should have been the Air, the Huawei MateBook X Pro
X.
10 with an X. Our show today brought to you by Rocket Mortgage. The folks at Quicken Loans are the #1 lender in the country because they care about customers. They put the customer experience first. And when I say #1 in the country, I mean it in 2 different ways. #1 in customer satisfaction. This is according to J.D. Power, 8 years in a row for the mortgage approval process. 8 years in a row. They're also #1 in volume. That just happened in December, but I think they go together. You make people happy, they're going to beat a path to your door. They're going to come back again. They're going to tell their friends. And we're really pleased to tell you about the best part of Quicken Loans, this Rocket Mortgage, an entirely online mortgage approval process. You could do it on an iPad. You could do it on a laptop. You could do it on your phone. You could do it in an open house. It's so fast. The 3-step process, they call it the power buying process, begins with the most simple step, which is just answer a few questions. Things you already know about, like your name, address, birth date, social security number. That's enough for them to get going and check your credit for pre-qualified approval. They'll tell you which loans you qualify for. You choose the term, the rate, the down payment, and all of this in less than 10 minutes and you're done. Now, behind the scenes over the next 24 hours, mostly without any input on your part. You don't have to go to the attic and find paperwork or call the bank and get statements from 2016. They'll do it all for you because they have trusted relationships with all the financial partners. They'll verify your income, your assets, and credit, and within 24 hours, they'll give you something called verified approval. Now, basically, you're a cash. You have the strength of a cash buyer. You even get a letter that says they're verified. They're good for it. You go right to the front of the line when you're making an offer on a house. And then step 3 kicks in. Once you've got verified approval, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. This takes the anxiety out of house hunting. Interest rates have been going up. They've been going up. That's nervous making, because if you take an extra month to buy a house and the interest rate goes up a quarter point, that's tens of thousands of dollars all of a sudden you're going to have to pay for that loan. But not with Rocket Mortgage. No, because they lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Rates could go up, but your rate will not. Actually, if rates go down, your rate will go down. People sometimes say, well, what if it goes down? Your rate goes down. You win either way. I love this. And I can tell you, having bought our last house from the big bank, next time it's Rocket Mortgage. Make it Rocket Mortgage for yourself, too. RocketMortgage.com/NSS. RocketMortgage.com/NSS. That's short for New Screensavers. Go to RocketMortgage.com/NSS. Rate Shield approval is valid only on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data records. They're an equal housing lender licensed in all 50 states. NMLSConsumerAccess.org, number 3030. RocketMortgage.com/NSS. I've got my MacBook Air. You've got your MacBook Air. This is the way to get it. Gold.
Gold, I am the gray of space, the cold gray of outer space.
I guess that's the new Pro color, but this is not a Pro device. Let's say that right up front.
It's definitely not. In ways that the old MacBook Air used to be plausibly a Pro device, if you spec'd it up, you can't spec this up. So
it's going to have an i5. That's it. It's a Wi-Fi i5, which means a low-power 7-watt i5, specially designed by Intel to be 7 watts instead of the 5 that most Ys are. That's basically Intel's Core M processor.
Basically, they renamed it so that people wouldn't treat it badly.
Yeah.
It does have, unlike the MacBook, the 12-inch MacBook has one of those 5-watt chips in it, and it's fanless. One of the nice things about this, and I know this is hard to believe, is that it has a fan, but what that means is it can run hotter. It's not going to throttle itself back, and that means it can be faster.
I've been working it as hard as I can. I've not been able to either the fan's so quiet I can't tell, or I can't get it. You hear it.
I have, you try to put Dropbox on it for the first time, and it wants to sync all 30,000 of your Dropbox files, and that fan kicks in right away. So, but that's good, because that means that it's able to run faster with Turbo Boost, and instead of doing what a fanless system will do, which is throttle back and run slower until it cools off. So I think it's good that the fan is still in there.
Apple's a little influenced by the MacBook Nothing, because they eliminated some of the connectors. They've only got Type-C Thunderbolt 3 connectors, although there are 2 of them.
Yes, this product, for people who have not been following Apple laptops and they just have been using their existing MacBook Air, this is very much like one of those TV recaps, like previously on the MacBook, because it's all the stuff that they have been doing the last 4 years. So it's USB-C, no more MagSafe, no more DisplayPort, the Thunderbolt's in the USB-C.
And I'm sad to say,
and the butterfly keyboard.
The crap butterfly keyboard, although the one...
It's the 3rd gen, it's better than the first 2.
It's usable.
It is.
You know what, I've gotten over it a little bit. I'm able to use this with some comfort.
Yeah, it's fine.
It does have a fingerprint reader because it's got the T2 chip in it.
Yeah, it's the first device on the Mac to have Touch ID without that touch bar thing.
I hate the touch bar. I love the physical escape keys and function keys. I'm thrilled, frankly. So that kind of makes up, to me, that makes up for the Butterfly 3 keyboard. Okay. This is so much like the original, like the old MacBook Air.
It is. That was my surprise, is that I thought they might release a new MacBook Air and call it a MacBook Air, but it's really some other laptop. And it's not. This is the MacBook Air. It's got like the feet on the bottom. These little round feet, the little curved edges, curving.
It's all the same.
The screws that Apple would probably hate to do now.
The pentalobes,
Yeah. So if you're a MacBook Air user and you pick this up, you'll be like, oh yeah, this is totally a MacBook Air. It's got some changes, but it is recognizably. Now, I think the truth is that when Apple came out with that MacBook a couple years ago, 3 years ago, I guess, they thought it would be the replacement for this, and it never happened. And they went back to the drawing board and said, okay, we're going to build a Retina MacBook Air after all, and this is it.
It is Retina, which is nice.
It's not quite 2 times the resolution of the old display, but it's like 1.8 times the resolution.
It's not bezel-less either. I have to. Oh, I keep touching this.
Yeah.
Why isn't that going away? Oh, no,
it's not.
Why.
It's not bezel-less, but the old bezels were enormous, and
this is better.
So this is actually, it allowed them to shrink the computer. This computer is actually almost as narrow as the old 11-inch MacBook Air, even though it's still got a 13-inch screen in it, because the bezels are much less, and they're the new Apple standard, which is the single pane of glass with the screen behind.
The Liquid Retina.
Because the old Air was the silver frame over the display, which was a very old school look.
Now, I have an i9 MacBook Pro, which is the speed
that's
demon.
going to be a lot faster than this.
But this is fast enough.
It is
90% of
I think so.
what I do.
The like I talk about my podcast editing, so much of that is disk bound.
Yeah.
And this with that
It's got
T2
a nice, fast
processor,
drive.
it's the storage is super fast
Yeah.
because it's all flash storage and it's being controlled by Apple's own ARM processor.
Let me edit this in Aurora HDR, which is a fairly slow program, even on the i9. It's going to import this image. It's a digital negative image into Aurora, and then here it comes. Here's Aurora running. So this is actually about the same speed, believe it or not, as I would have on my i9. To be honest, Aurora is fairly slow.
Yeah, I think if you're doing 4K video or you're doing a lot of video
Maybe you'd
encoding,
notice
this
it.
is not the computer
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
But it's going to be pretty capable for the people who would buy a MacBook Air. I think the big difference is you used to be able to buy a MacBook Air and then spec it up to have an i7 in it.
You can't spec this up.
And
It's-
this
in
is
a way, I don't mind that. It's
so
an i5.
here's
It's
the
not
funny
gonna have
thing.
thermals, right?
I feel like this is the future of a lot of Mac,
Yeah.
especially consumer Macs. It's going to be more like an iPad. You can't spec up an iPad's processor. There's only one. You
Right.
can't spec up the MacBook Air's processor. It comes with one processor. That's it. You can spec up the RAM. You can spec up the storage, but the processor is what it is. It's the only processor they make. So if you want a faster processor, if you want an i7, you're going to need to at least go up to that MacBook Escape.
Right.
And then you can build to order a faster processor there.
And let me show you how this works, which is kind of nice, the before and the after. This is perfectly snappy, right?
Yeah.
There, I've made you look really old. My job
Yeah,
here is
thank
done.
you very much. You've made my swetter is exploding. Now. It's like
Well,
radioactive.
Yeah. That's HDR for you.
Thanks a lot.
Hey, I'm,
Get off my
that's what you're going to look like when you're my age, Jason.
These newfangled computers.
Maybe I should tone that down a little
Just
bit.
back that off.
That's a little bit better. I feel like this is fine.
I
Now,
think this
wanted to
is the default. I think right now if somebody said what MacBook should I buy, I'm like MacBook Air.
Now it's not as cheap as we hoped.
That's
it's
the thing.
$11.99.
It's $11.99. The old Air starts at $9.99. So this is $200 more expensive than the Air was to start.
And that's with
before.
an 8 gigabyte RAM and with only 128 gig storage. That's not a lot. I spec this up to 16 gigs and 512 storage, $1,700 bucks, which is about right. I mean, you're paying a premium. It's a Macintosh, but look, fellas, it's gold. It's
there
solid
you go.
gold. Let me show you. This is what people were saying when this came out in May. This is the Huawei MateBook X Pro. And when this came out, people said this. And by the way, that's what the MacBook Air is so interesting. This was the first ultrabook, the MacBook Air.
Yes.
This is a copy, in effect, of the MacBook Air because it's an ultrabook, super thin, but this has an i7 U chip in it. So it's got a much faster chip. Notice they were able to go almost bezel-less. Well, there's one drawback to doing that. Where do you put the camera? How about right here, under your nose? That's a little weird.
Just watching while you type.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you wanted to Skype, you could tilt it like that, or something. But it's a really nice machine. You know the drawback on this? It's running Windows.
Yeah.
It's running Windows. But this is the same price, I should point out, for considerably more. A bigger drive, a faster processor, a better screen, a bezel-less screen. This is the same price as that MacBook Air we're looking at. And by the way, a better keyboard.
And this is a trend that we're seeing with Apple is they are definitely cranking up the price of all of their stuff.
Yeah. This has a headphone jack and 2 Thunderbolt 3 connectors, but it also has a Type A USB 3.
Fancy.
One more port, not a whole lot more. There's a drawback to this Huawei, I have to say. The fan is here and it fires right up at you. But if on a cold winter's day, there's nothing better. This is this starts at $11.99, just like the MacBook Air, but instead it's got a 13.9-inch LCD touchscreen, 3000 by 2000 instead of 2560 by 1600. So it's a little bit higher resolution, 91% screen-to-body ratio that you really, I think, the Dell XPS 13. There are many laptops now that have smaller bezels than Apple's. If you can go all the way up to 1.5 terabytes of drive, you can go all the way up to 16 gigs. It does have a touch sensor, much the same spot, by the way, as the Apple Touch sensor. It's got 2 Thunderbolt USB-C charging, DisplayPort, up to 40 gigabit throughput, as well as the USB 3.1 second gen, up to 10 gigabits, 50.3 watt-hour battery. So this competes with the MacBook Air in terms of battery life. I think the MacBook Air is the winner, though, on that one. That's one thing we should really give credit to the MacBook Air for. This is 2.75. I'm sorry, this is 2.93 pounds. I'm sorry, I got this all mixed up. 57 watt-hour battery, 15 hours, they claim. The Apple's 50.3 watt-hour battery. And this one is 2.93 pounds compared to the MacBook Air 2.75. So the MacBook Air is a little bit lighter than the Huawei. I feel like the Huawei, this is spec'd out, kind of top of the line. It's about $1,500. It's a couple $100 less for more. It is from Huawei. It does run Windows 10. I'm going to give you my review of the MacBook Air. This is mom's home cooking. This for me is almost nostalgic.
It's funny. Apple has, a lot of people have said, and I think there's some truth in it, Apple's kind of lost its way with its laptop designs the last few years.
Yeah.
It is telling that this shot of mom's home cooking is so welcome.
Yeah.
Because they backed off on a bunch of their things, and it's familiar.
No touch bar.
And I think that says a lot about where Apple has been in laptops the last few years.
I did not expect to like this. I thought it was going to be too slow for me, too underpowered. And you know what? This is my preferred laptop.
Yeah.
It's nostalgic. It's like mom's home cooking may not be the best, right?
But it's what you were
But
raised
it's
on,
mom's
and-
home cooking.
yeah.
This is what I grew up. This is the Air. It's back. And I have to say, a lot of people who use the Air will feel very comfortable, very at home.
And I think the primary audience for this is going to be people who have been hanging on to an old MacBook Air. And there wasn't a new one that was a Retina display.
Right.
And they basically haven't updated it in like 4 or 5 years. So here it is.
Yeah.
And it is now my default. I've got a kid going off to school. I need to get them a laptop. We want it to be a Mac. This is where you start.
The MateBook, sure, it's an i7 8550U. It's got a GeForce MX150. It's got actually real discrete graphics. This has the kind of not so hot Intel graphics. The GPU is not great in this. It's the UHD 617. Who cares? Who cares? This is home cooking. You can go to a fancy restaurant, get some fancy Chinese food if you want. Okay, gourmet, costs a little bit less. This is home. So I have to say, in fact, I'm probably going to use this instead of that i9 MacBook Pro. When I need horsepower, I can use. This is one thing I don't like about Apple. None of these are 100% everything you need.
Correct.
So if you really want to live in the Apple world, you better have an Apple Watch, an Apple phone, an Apple iPad, an Apple laptop, and an Apple desktop. But then you could do everything you need to do. Then $10,000 later, you're happy.
That is why Apple is one of the most successful companies in the world.
Number one, baby. We're number one. See, because I have an iMac Pro, and I can go to the iMac Pro if I need horsepower or speed.
Exactly.
If I want portability, when I want to travel, or when I want to just go back and forth to work, this fits in my backpack. It's light. The i9 is probably doesn't really have a role in that, And if I want something super light, that's just gorgeous, I'll go with the iPad Pro. All right. We got one more Mac,
There's
and I just
more.
want to show you the unboxing experience on this thing. I didn't take this out of the box yet because I'm so impressed by this. This is the Mac Mini, and actually, of all the things Apple announced and shipped last week, this might be the most interesting. It might make people the happiest. Look at the experience opening this up. Look at that. You open it up, and it's like, this is what Steve Jobs always said in Johnny Ive. It should be a theatrical experience.
Yeah. You spent a lot of money on that computer.
Yeah.
You should feel good about opening it up.
Only in slate gray. Don't forget your gold color.
Yeah, it's space gray or it's nothing.
And people will, by the way, be very happy. I know a lot of server companies are. It's the same size. It's the same shape.
Yeah, they decided to redesign the entire inside but not change the aluminum outside. The aluminum shape is exactly the same. So Mac Stadium, all of those people, anybody who's got this stuck in a very specific spot in a desk somewhere, don't do it. It is going to fit. You can literally just unplug the ports and then plug them back in. That's what I did.
And talk about ports. This thing is loaded. Let me take it out of the box. We'll show you. You've got one already out. But
I do.
I like the unboxing experience.
Yeah, it's good.
And people will enjoy this. Oh, I didn't show you. The gold MacBook Air comes with gold Apple stickers. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Now how much would you pay? I got the black Apple stickers from my old Mac Pro. And what color are these? Are these slate?
I think might be black Apple stickers.
Let's
The
find
power cord is black.
out. The power cord is black, ladies and gentlemen.
No, white.
White.
White stickers. Yeah,
Get
they
the
cheaped
gold
out there.
if
You got to
you
get the
want the
iMac Pro for
gold
the black
apples.
one.
Okay,
How
and then
about
they.
apples?
I love the reveal. So
This is the best part. The tape coming off the back is the best part.
there's where'd all the ports go? Where? Oh, see, if you have an 8-year-old or maybe a 5-year-old, this would be great.
Other side.
Other side. Oh yeah, there's always an easy side, and I always pick the hard side. Look at this. What do you think's under there? Huh? What do you think?
USB-A.
USB-A. Headphone jack.
It's the old school part of the
Headphone
back
jack.
of the Mac Mini.
What else?
HDMI.
Full-size HDMI.
Interesting. Tell
By the
me
way,
more.
HDMI 2.0, the latest. 1,
Oh, there's some USB-C Thunderbolt 3, 2.
3. Could it be 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports?
true.
That's better than 3 Thunderbolt 4 ports.
Maybe. How would we know?
We wouldn't know. There is a gigabit Ethernet full size.
Yep.
And you can get 10 if you
You
really
can.
want.
That's what I did.
Did you?
I did.
Do you have 10 at home?
I do now because I have an iMac Pro and I have a Mac Mini with.
Your local area network is fast as. We actually have 10 gigabits from Sonic. I should probably get 10 on this, but I didn't. I got a gigabit.
Yeah.
And there.
It's my file server. Yep. And there's the power plug.
And there's the power.
Exact same power
By the
plug.
way, had to be because there's a U mounting rack that has a. Who makes that one? That has a mechanical switch. You press the front, and it has a little mechanical lever that presses the back.
Press the power button.
Yeah, so it had to be exactly the same, and they did. Apple thought
Absolutely.
about it. So we've seen the iFixit tear down to this. You can kind of get into it if you have the right wedges and spudgers.
Yeah, it is very much upgrading the RAM, and this is like upgrading the hard drive was on the old model, which
But it
is you
is
got to go all the
SO-DIMMs.
way to the bottom. But it is SO-DIMMs. They're
So,
standard. You can
yeah.
do what Apple recommends, that you have a authorized person do it.
Yes.
Who knows what they're doing, because you may break things if you take it apart. But you can. You can't upgrade the storage because those storage chips are paired to the T2.
This has a T2 as well.
Yes, it does.
No fingerprint reader, no touch bar.
No, it's just using it for safe boot and as the disk controller, and it'll encrypt your disk on the fly, which is nice because somebody could just walk away with that little thing.
I love File Vault. I turn it on, and now File Vault has literally 0 penalty.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
In fact, everything is encrypted by default, but you can encrypt it to your Apple ID and with a password if you want. So there's actually encryption happening regardless
That's
if somebody
what I do.
ripped those chips out.
Yeah. So this is real, and it has a new cooling structure.
Right,
There's the
because this
fan
thing you
port.
can spec up with lots and lots of processor power. And so like the iMac Pro, they have built a new cooling system with a very large vent in the back.
I feel like in some ways, this is the most interesting product that Apple released. First of all, they didn't have to update the Mac Mini. It's 4 years old already. They've survived 4 years without one.
And that 4-year upgrade was a downgrade. It was actually worse afterward than before.
But the fact that they did, and they did it so well, this really is almost a zero compromise machine for the size. I mean,
the big difference is that it starts at $799 instead of $499. We talk about
expensive.
Apple raising the prices, but in this, I think it's justified because what Apple wanted to do is build a system that started at a pretty good spot for a server, basically a home server, something like that, and then had lots of headroom up.
this could be your desktop.
So you can configure that up, and it could be a desktop. You can attach a couple of 5K displays
all
to
this
it.
connectivity.
It's
That's
almost
awesome.
like a little mini Mac Pro, honestly.
That's kind of what I felt like. The only thing, it's not a Xeon. It's only
yeah, it's a desktop class processor.
i7. But still, this is a very nice, I think a beautiful machine. We're going to use this actually in production. This is going to become our new kind of 5th Skype box. We have 4 Skypes, but we'll have FaceTime capability and others.
And people say, like, who uses a Mac Mini? And that's part of the point, is that there's no one audience for the Mac Mini,
Right.
but there are lots of them out there in lots of surprising places. My understanding is that most, like Broadway theater productions, they're the lighting controller.
So small.
A lot of them are the sound controllers.
Yeah.
After the Apple event 2 weeks ago, I went to a podcast studio in Midtown Manhattan and went into their mixing room to do an episode. And what was driving the entire board? Mac Mini.
Yeah.
Right? So and for Apple,
Now,
I
these
think,
aren't silent. They're
I
not
think
going to be silent.
They're not going to be silent, but they're pretty quiet.
Yeah.
And because they've designed them, Apple these days tries to design its fans to be quiet, not like on the MacBook Air, but the iMac Pro is pretty quiet most of the time too. But for Apple, it serves an important purpose, which is that it kind of takes the pressure off all the other Macs. Like if there is not another Mac to do whatever crazy thing that you want to do, your lighting in your Broadway show or whatever, the Mac Mini will do it. Like the Mac Mini is the answer for every other little niche job that you need a Mac to do.
Do you think this is in some way going to inform us about what a modular Mac Pro will look like next year?
Well, I think it sets the base for the Mac Pro, right? Like the Mac Pro doesn't have to go down too far because that thing can go up.
It could start
pretty far.
at Xeon W or even higher.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So this I think maybe defines sort of the low end of the Mac Pro, and then it'll go up from there, which means I think it gives Apple the freedom to make that thing expensive, because if you don't want to spend that money, you can get a Mac Mini. And they talk about modular, and this is probably a good example of a computer that's not modular, although Thunderbolt 3, like you can hang an eGPU off of it. It has onboard graphics. You were talking about Intel onboard graphics. It does not have a GPU. But if you really want to go to town, that thing could eat the Mac Mini alive, but you can attach that with Thunderbolt 3 and then use it as your GPU.
Yeah, because this has, of course, Intel's motherboard GPU on. The base model is $799 for the Mac Mini. That includes a 3.6 gigahertz quad-core i3, UHD graphics 630, 8 gigs of DDR4 SODIMM RAM, and 128 gig PCIe SSD. You get all those ports.
And the gigabit Ethernet.
You can go all the way up to an i7, 3.2 gigahertz i7 with 6 cores. That's pretty nice. And you can go all the way up to 64 gigs of RAM. That tells you there's some this is intended to be
and 2
terabytes
of flash storage, which is pretty wild.
With this Thunderbolt, Thunderbolt can run a GPU, but it can also run lots of fast hard drives. There's lots of
That's why I bought the base model, is that I have a big RAID attached to it via Thunderbolt, so I don't need internal storage other than to boot the thing.
The other thing that's cool about this story, this is made entirely from recycled aluminum, as is the MacBook Air.
And it's basically the shavings from
soda cans.
No, it's not. It's shavings from the iPhone and the iPad and from the Mac Mini and from the MacBook Air.
So somewhere your old Mac Mini's in here.
All the old, not the old ones. It's so they're unibody, right? So it starts out as a block.
Okay.
And then they carve them out.
Of diminishing
and all
returns.
the stuff that's carved them out. But apparently they've been saving the aluminum for years now, and have figured out how to put it back in here.
We've got binders full of aluminum.
I just love the metaphor too, that old, like the leftovers from iPads and iPhones make Macs now.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. This is really beautiful.
But you can't tell that it's 100% recycled aluminum. It is exactly the same aluminum.
So what do you think?
Everywhere.
You think this eGPU, is it all wired up? We could use eGPU. Do you think it'll work with an iPad?
It will not, because it is a Thunderbolt device, and that is USB-C only. The port is the same, but
What about the dock?
nothing else is.
Will the video come out of it, the work?
Power? Will the USB-A?
Well, that's a Thunderbolt device, though, so I think it's just going to say, I don't know how to do this because it's Thunderbolt.
Am I getting power?
Yes.
Okay, we are getting charging. So there you go. It
Congratulations.
charges. I have an $800 charging station. No video. All right. But this will obviously work just fine with the Mac Mini and with the MacBook Air.
And with the MacBook Air, yeah.
So if I wanted to, I could actually make this a little bit more capable by carrying it around portable. And then when I want to have, some horsepower for video editing or whatever, I just plug in the eGPU.
You could.
And maybe have it hooked up to a big old monitor, and then I'm ready to go. That's pretty cool. I wonder if this would open. Let's close Aurora. Cancel. I wonder if it'll open faster. Should I try that? You saw how long it took. This is a very rough benchmark. You saw how long it took. I don't know. What do you think? Oh, cannot connect to a Thunderbolt. Connect. What?
It's very confused now.
Now it's really, I can't unplug it. Or can I?
Or can you?
I guess I can. Let's try
Don't
again.
cross the streams.
We've got a different cable.
You think it's the cable?
Well, this is the cable you're supposed to use.
Oh, we're supposed to use the data cable.
Welcome to Dongle Town.
Even Thunderbolt cables, you always want to look for the Thunderbolt and the 3.
Yeah, the
Otherwise-
disadvantage of having every single cable be shaped the same,
Yeah.
but behave differently. Isn't it great what a world we live in?
Now let's see. Oh yeah, now it knows there's a GPU attached.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
says
there you
there's and this, by the way, one of the weird things that happens with, that's just because we connected to the scan converter. Now let me just see how fast that makes this if I decide to open this in Aurora HDR. Let's see if that speeds things up a little bit. Just a little, it's a silly little benchmark. Did I do it? Oh, yep. So we got the video. Oh, I think it might be a little bit faster, huh? This has always been a slow process, this Aurora HDR, because it's taking in the image, processing it heavily, and then modifying it. You can do HDR with a good raw image because there's enough data in
So
there.
how much of that work is happening on the GPU? Well, yeah, but if it's using the CPU instead of the GPU.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I'll have to try this with compressor or something that knows about the GPU. So, that was a little bit faster. Let's see how fast I can make you old. Okay.
1 second per second.
Yeah, now you look old.
Thank you.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. It's Christmas. It came early. Came in November. New MacBook Air. I have to say, Mom's home cooking. I feel like I'm right at home. This is my old computer. Better than a MacBook.
Little comfort food.
Little comfort food. The iPad, which makes you feel like you're in Future Town, but they just forgot to build the sewer system.
Yep.
That's okay. We're going to get the infrastructure in. And, of course, the Mac Mini, which is going to make everybody who knows happy with all those connectors on the back. That is an awesome. I think a lot of people might say that's my desktop Mac right there.
Could be.
That might be a good choice. Thank you so much. Jason Snell, you are awesome. I think this would be a good time to take a look at the future of smartphones.
Oh,
yes.
That's a great idea.
We're going to wrap things up with the mailbox in just a bit. But first, Jason Howell with a look at the first phone with pistol grips, the Hydrogen One from Red.
Last week, at the very last minute, right before the show, I unboxed a phone that I had just received, and that would be this one, the Red Hydrogen One, this beast of a phone. And when I say beast of a phone, I really do mean it. This thing just feels so large. I mean, next to the Pixel 2 XL, it's hardly a shadow, the Pixel 3 XL.
No, hardly. It overtakes it. It's a blanket.
Yeah, totally. This thing is gigantic. And I mean, it's such
heavy.
Heavy, yes, it's heavy. It's got really unique design stylings, as you can see, Kevlar and aluminum. The whole thing is just a really unique device. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of walk you through this.
Kevlar.
Yeah, Kevlar. Well, Kevlar on back. You got some Kevlar and you got some aluminum around the sides. It just feels tight. Like it feels like you don't even need a case. You could just drop this thing and it's always going to work.
Like a Hummer.
Yes. Actually, that's really a great comparison. This is probably the Hummer brand of smartphones right here. The challenge for Red here is that the people who they want it to appeal to are camera enthusiasts. And the kind of sad part is that though the camera does some really interesting thing with something they call 4V or holographic 4view, which is basically the stereoscopic camera capabilities on the front and back. So that's unique. But as a general purpose camera, it's kind of like, okay, it's all right. There's nothing special about it. And then you tack on the fact that it's almost $1,300.
Is there any benefit if I'm a filmmaker that uses a Red camera to use this phone? Or is it literally just a brand play that like, you like our film cameras, use the phone?
I think that is the open question.
Because the modules is what we'll answer at, right?
Right. So you can see there's the pogo pins on the back, and basically what Red has said at this point, starting in 2019, sometime, they don't have a specific date, but there will be modules released for this, including, from what I understand, a cinema style or cinema class capable camera with a mount that would mount onto here. So the idea being that if you had that and you had this phone, you'd have a relatively moderately priced Red camera, and I mean, Red cameras are not inexpensive. So if this was like your entry level point, you get the phone, you get the modular camera for it, and it's good enough, then this might be a really great entry point for beginning Red photographers or someone who wants the Red capability in their pocket in more of a mobile sense. So the long-term play is potentially very promising. Right now, though, is when the phone is available. And what do you get right now for $1,300? You get a Snapdragon 835, which is last year's top-of-the-line processor, not this year's, because this thing has been in the works for quite a while. You get 6 gigs of RAM, which is just fine, 128 or 256 gig storage options inside. You do get the 5.7 holographic 4-view capable display. Most of the time it's showing 2D at 2560 by 1440. But if you're looking at capable or compatible content, it's basically impossible to show this off on here. But if I pull up, let's see here. Oh, this was done with the, so you can kind of see, if I switch it around, you see how things kind of shift? It's really very similar to the lenticular display that you've seen a million times. Like, I think I mentioned it last week on like lunchboxes is one example. I compared it side by side with a Nintendo 3DS, and the effect is very similar. So if you've seen 3D on a 3DS, the effect is very similar. The difference is the 3DS also has some capability of shifting perspective. It's able to shift perspective based on where it tracks your head in space. This does not have that. So when you rotate side to side, you get a 3D view, but it kind of snaps into place as you see it kind of snaps left or right. And that's about all you get. It gives some people headaches. Other people are like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. I don't know if it's cool enough to base your entire technology around, but I think that's part of what Red is hoping for. Two 12 megapixel cameras on the back. You can only shoot in stereoscopic mode if you're in landscape. If you're in portrait, it forces 2D mode. And then on the front facing camera, only portrait shoots in stereoscopic. If you're doing landscape, it forces 2D mode. But it's capable of doing 3D on both sides, so that's pretty cool. It also has a really big battery, a 4,500 milliamp hour battery in here. And battery life was no problem with this sucker. You're really not even tapping into that. USB-C, also a headphone jack or courage port, as Matteo Doni would like to call it. And then it has this easy access SIM card tray as well as a micro SD card slot, so you can just pull it out without a tool. That's really nice. And it is running Android 8.1. Pretty clean version of Android, although there is some cruft in there. You know, there's actually a Facebook app that's on here that you cannot remove, which is kind of a bummer. And then you have a number of, Red's own apps that are basically just like, here's a bunch of content that's going to work with 4V, but I don't know how much you're really going to get out of that. Like, I was able to find a couple of games, Asphalt 8, which is a great game. It's neat. It's just not going to sell devices in and of itself, And I will say that in kind of playing around with the phone, I noticed some kind of choppy transitions, some frame dropping. In a $1,300 phone, I feel like that's kind of inexcusable. But those things appeared, time after time. Not every single time I would transition around, but especially like scrolling. If I was on a page and I was scrolling, it would be really kind of choppy at times, and that's just kind of disappointing when you're spending that much money on a phone. I put a link to some of the photos from the camera. I mean, you don't see these in 3D, but if you were on my phone, you would, and they look, interesting in and of themselves. The cool thing is when you shoot in 3D, you're also shooting, it also saves a 2D version of it. The 2D shots are fine. They're not amazing, and Red is a camera company. So again, if you're spending that money, I think you kind of hope that the pictures are going to be, really, really awesome, and they're fine. Like, this was in our meeting room, and that's really not that impressive. I feel like some of the things that this should have gotten right, it didn't, and that's going to hold it back. So if the camera module comes out and it becomes the differentiator, maybe I would change my recommendation. You know what I mean? If that comes out and this becomes an affordable entry point for Red quality cameras, that's one thing, and that's totally valuable in and of itself. But as it is right now, it's really hard to recommend the Red Hydrogen 1 phone for the cost, for what you're spending, what you're getting. The 3D effect really kind of burns off pretty quick. So that's the Red Hydrogen 1.
$1,300.
For $1,300 starting.
This is a review unit, right? We're not going to spend $1,300. Yes, it's most of the time, like all the Apple stuff we just showed you, Jason is using review units, but we buy it because Apple.
I bought about half of it.
Apple's not going to give me nothing.
Apple gave me one iPad, right?
That's nice. Yeah,
I bought the other one.
But we decided it would probably be better get this from Red as
review
unit and send it back.
Good idea.
I do think it might be interesting. These pogo pins are unused currently, but that would be very interesting if somehow this became a Red camera. Not a phone. It's not a good phone, but maybe it's just a computer that could attach to something more powerful or more interesting. So that would be, as Jason said, the thing to wait for. you got a phone with a little red eye on it. That's cool. All right, Jason and Nell, are you ready for a couple of questions from the mailbox?
From the mailbox, yes.
Yes. Thomas is pushing in the mailbox. You may remember him from behind the scenes at some very famous concerts. And now, whoa!
Dongletown delivery.
Won't you take me to Dongletown? These are 5-inch USB-C to USB adapters. Oh, you might need a few of these. You might need. I just bought some Anker power wall units, and they also come with the adapters. I think Anker knows you're going to need a few of these.
Invest in dongles.
You can take those with you, Thomas. Thank you. And now the questions of the week. Pick one. There. That was very wily of you. And in fact, it worked. You get email number 1.
This is from Kevin in Trinidad and Tobago.
I love Trinidad and
Very
Tobago.
nice. I have a late 2013 27-inch iMac, my first foray into the Mac world, and I love it. And I want to do a clean install of Mac OS. I've already backed up the files I want to, but I'm not sure of the best way of doing the install. What is the best way to go about it? Also, I want to upgrade the memory to the maximum 32 gigs. What brands are safe to use with the Mac? Thanks.
Well, you have the right man for this one.
It's amazing that I'm glad this is not a Windows letter, because I have no idea what that is. And there are a couple ways. If your 27-inch iMac came with a disk, which I don't think they do anymore because they don't have disk slots anymore, you could boot from that. Older iMacs, that's the way to do it.
Just do Command R.
But you do Command R. That's the new boot from a disk, and that puts you in recovery mode. At which point you can open Disk Utility, wipe the drive, and reinstall the OS. It'll download it over the internet if it has to, or it will save a version of it on this hidden recovery partition that Apple provides now. And that's the way to do it. If you've already backed everything else up, you can just wipe. If you've got a bootable external drive, you can boot from that and wipe it out too. But the best thing, when you start it up and hold down Command R until you boot into the recovery mode.
Yeah. If you do that with an old Mac, will you get the version of Mac OS that came with that Mac?
I think what you'll get is the version that's shipped with the system.
Right.
And then you run the updates, and then you restore your backup.
Yeah. The good news is you'll be able to update that all the way to the highest level. It may not be compatible with Mojave. I don't know, 2013.
2013 might be.
If it is, it'll jump to Mojave.
Yeah, but you
don't have to do all the you don't have to do Maverick, and then you don't have to do all the
No, you go to the Mac
ones.
App Store and you get the latest update that is compatible with your system, and then restore your files back from there. But Command R to go into recovery mode is the best way to do that.
Now, you might want to do the memory first, because who knows when you open it up, and by the way, opening an iMac is non-trivial.
Yeah, so 2013 may have the
you need the
RAM and
cups.
27-inch. No, it's got the RAM in the door in the back. There's a RAM door.
You can? There's a RAM door?
On the 27.
Oh, isn't that nice?
Yeah, so you open that up, and I don't have any particular brands. I usually
buy MacSales.com,
OWC. Yeah, that's usually where I get my stuff.
And the reason I go there and get the RAM is because they will give you the tools you need, whatever it is for that Mac.
Yeah.
You can choose that model.
You actually go to their website and say what model you've got. They know what RAM type you can do, how much you can put in, all of that.
They have videos.
So MacSales.com is the place to go.
They may be a little more expensive. I mean, if you want to shop around, go to Crucial and Kingston.
Sure.
They also have RAM pickers, so you can enter the model and you can find what one you need. But OWC just does Mac stuff. So as a result, they're going to have the tools, the videos, they're going to have all the information, they're going to know exactly.
It says something you and I both went immediately to OWC.
That's where I go.
That's where I buy my
I
upgrade stuff
haven't
too.
shopped around that much. I get the sense it might be a little bit more expensive. Newegg. Yeah.
All right.
If you're really price sensitive, you could do that.
Yeah, you can do the shopping. There are a lot of sites that'll let you put in your Mac model and tell you exactly what kind of RAM you need.
Right.
And then you can comparison shop.
Yeah. Of course, it's also conditioned by the fact you're in Trinidad and Tobago. I know a lot of people in the islands just use a U.S. Dropbox, get it mailed to there, and then trans-shipped over to you.
But it's a standard memory type, so even you may be able to go to a computer store locally and get it.
You might.
Or mail order.
Yep. I have a question. I was so engaged in your question. This is number 2 from Dennis. With Apple another Mac question. How do they know?
I don't know.
With Apple stopping support for 32-bit applications in macOS. That's not now, it's next time, right?
Yeah, that's part of the
warning.
answer.
Warning. I noticed I still have plenty of 32-bit apps. Yes, you do. If I want to keep using these apps, would not upgrading my OS further accomplish that? Some of these apps are Adobe apps as well as the program I use to create a color profile for my monitor. Thank you.
Yeah, it's surprising how many 32-bit apps we're still all running. And Mojave, it's like every time you reboot, it sort of spins the wheel and tells you about another one that isn't updated.
It doesn't do it all at once, does it?
No, it's just sort of time by time, or when you launch them. But it will also just occasionally pull one out and say, here's one.
Are they running full speed right now?
Yeah.
So it's not a question of these are not running full speed.
No, Apple has said they've given notice for a while now that this is going to go away, but it isn't going to go away until whatever comes after Mojave. So the answer is don't upgrade beyond Mojave and all your 32-bit stuff will work.
Right.
However, that also means that all of the developers of these apps they've had a year plus, and they'll have another year to get their stuff into 64-bit form. But if you are using a specialty app that might go away, just don't upgrade to past Mojave. My friend James Thompson, who he writes pCalc, the excellent calculating app. He has a classic app called DragThing that I used for years, and he can't update it to 64-bit. It would be he'd have to rewrite it, and so he took it off sale, and he said just don't. So if you rely on an app that's 32-bit, you should check with the developer because it may be like Adobe's going to update all of its stuff to be 64-bit, but you may have some special app that just is dead, and then you just have to keep a Mojave Mac around.
It's a shame. Because with Windows, you could run in a virtual machine,
well, you could
older versions of Windows.
So you can do that
run
on the Mac.
Virtual machines?
Yeah. There are the last 4 or 5 versions of OS X you can run in VMware or Parallels as a virtual machine. So if you want, that's the other option here. For as long as
Especially
Apple
if it's
is
just
on
your color picker, things like that. Yeah.
As long as Apple is still on Intel processors anyway. Who knows what happens if they move to ARM? But for now, yes, you could also create a virtual machine running Mavericks or something like that and keep all your old software in there for when you need it.
I had no idea.
Yeah, Apple changed the rules with like Tiger or something, and they made it originally, the first few versions, it was server only, but for the last, 4 or 5, the client version has been
VMware Fusion or
on
Parallels?
Only on a
It
Mac.
has to, obviously can't do it on Windows machine, but if you're running on a Mac, it knows.
But yeah, and VMware
Mac.
Fusion and Parallels will even say, would you like to make a Mac virtual machine? And then you get the installer files and it does it.
Will other virtualization programs work like Oracle's OneBox, or is it?
I think...
Because that's free.
I think it does.
I'm going to have to try it
But there may
tonight.
be limitations there. I know the commercial VM software will virtualize a Mac.
I'll try it tonight.
That's where you can store all of your ancient incompatible software.
That's probably the best way to do it. That way you can run a modern operating system and just use it for
use the
those
old
apps.
OS forever.
Yeah, and it should run at full speed and everything.
Yeah.
Jason Snell, you find him. I didn't mention this at the beginning of the show. I wish I had. At 6colors.com. That's Jason's blog. He
where
also
I
is
am.
a prolific podcaster.
Many podcasts, so many podcasts.
Incomparable, you do some on Relay.
Yeah, so Relay FM for the tech stuff and the incomparable.com for all of the non-tech stuff.
Relay.fm and the incomparable.com. And 6colors.com for his very colorful graphs.
Many things.
We didn't even talk about the Apple results. They had a good quarter, I hear.
Again.
You have a lot of graphs. But poor Jason, starting next quarter,
half those graphs are just gone.
You're not going to be able to do breakouts on iPhone sales or Mac
For me,
sales.
I won't have to do as many graphs. I think that might be okay.
Come on, you've got a shortcut that just does it all,
I
right?
do. It's all automated now.
Is it?
Which is pretty great, yeah. Yeah, it is.
You just push a button and...
Yeah, they all come and get automatically uploaded and the whole thing. Yeah, I have to put in the numbers in the spreadsheet, but all the generation happens automatically.
Did you do that in an Excel macro, a numbers macro, or
it's
with
Automator? It is on the Mac.
Hey Siri, make some
Automator
graphs.
with some AppleScript, but I do have a shortcut that does it on iOS. If I open that, and I can do it on iOS. So.
We use that, but I don't know if you know, but every time Apple has quarterly results on Mac Break, I will pull up all of those.
Well, thank you.
All those guys. And
I got all 6 colors.
I'll say I got them from some guy on the web.
Yeah, that's the internet.
Yeah, it's the internet.
We love our charts, but yes, they're not going to report unit figures anymore. So we'll drop all of those and just report about the money, which is what Apple wants us to do, is talk about how much money they're making.
You know, at first I thought, that's because they don't want anybody to know that the iPhone sales are flat or Mac sales are flat. But after I thought about it, it does kind of make sense that what really matters is not how many widgets they sold, but how much money per customer they're making.
Well, if you think about the context of who they're talking to with financial results, is they're talking to investors and Wall Street people.
Right.
And I think what they've decided is they legally have to share about the health of their business with Wall Street because they're a public company. They don't need to tell those of us who are kind of curious about unit sales. they're not required to tell us how many they sold.
Because we're the ones who write the stories, say Apple sales are for the iPhone are flat,
but
it's all over.
Exactly right. But I think that is part of the motivation, too, is that they just don't want those stories about their revenue went up more than 20% on iPhones this last quarter.
Even though
sales
growth.
were basically flat.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, if you're thinking of the PR version of that, which would you rather people report on?
Right.
20% up or flat? Like, it's not kind
and
of a
as an
no-brainer.
investor, 20% up is pretty good news.
And they don't care whether the sales are flat, necessarily.
You might for projecting the future.
You
and so
might,
forth.
but again, I come back to Apple is basically saying, oh, you mean we don't legally have to tell you information
Well,
about
then
our
we
business? We will not do that
Microsoft
anymore.
hasn't done it for a long time.
No, that was another point they made is their competitors don't do it.
Right.
So why do they? But I have lots of charts. There's one chart that I make about the Apple Watch sales because they never release those. That's a kind of a conceptual chart based on quotes from Tim Cook.
50% higher.
Yes, best quarter ever. All of my Apple charts are going to be that now, apparently. So, oh well. Those are the Jeff Bezos charts where there's no numbers.
There's no zero.
Yeah, we don't know. They're like, wow, that's a really big bar. What does it mean?
By the way,
nobody knows.
Thank you for making zero-based graphs. So many people don't.
Right, and yeah, that's. I had one
meaningless.
that wasn't, and I had to update it because I realized it it is meaningless when you're like, wow, that really.
Look at that growth.
And then you realize that it's like it grew from 1,000 to 1,005, but the base was 1,000, and it's like
That's
why
big growth.
yeah. There's a lot of great ways to lie with charts and graphs.
I appreciate that. Yep. Hey, thank you all for being here. We do the new screensavers on Saturdays, and note that we have fallen back. We've fallen back. We're now on Pacific Standard Time. So we do the show 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and that is 2300 UTC.
That's right. Until California forms its own time zone, which may happen very soon.
That initiative won.
That's right. So we could be in California time
We're
before
on
you know it.
California time. I'm on California time all the time. If you want to watch us live, go to twit.tv/live or live.twit.tv. They both work, different players, so you get your choice. You can also listen live. A lot of people do that. Even on your Amazon Echo or your Siri, your HomePod, you just have to say, hey, Shlomo, listen to Twit Live, and you'll be able to hear whatever's going on live in the studio. You can also get on-demand audio or video versions of this show at our website, twit.tv/NSS. Subscribe. That way you'll get it every week, the minute it's available. As soon as Anthony finishes the final touches and pushes the publish button. You want that, right? So you have it on your phone in the morning. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And we'll see you next time on the new Screensavers. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye-bye. The audience grew by 75%.